Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Refracted Curvature, Brian's Logic, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hey everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to have you all. You all well? Everyone happy?
Can I ask a quick question? Can everyone in Discord hear me properly now?
Yeah, but not good, Brian. Not really
But I
good,
mean,
man.
is
You're
it-
cutting off a lot.
I got bought a
Right
phone.
now I can hear you good, but most times you're cutting off.
Yeah, I got bought a phone for Christmas, so very generous by one of the contributors to the show, Paul. And I had a phone, it's just pretty crappy and old, and typically I don't use the phone very much, but you would have been a far better candidate for it. You know what I mean? But anyway.
No, but I don't know. See, this cutting out in Discord thing. I won't take up much of the show with this, but the cutting out in Discord thing. This only started recently, and what I did last night is I downloaded the old Google Meet app and I signed back into the old app, so I'm on that now. Because this is only something. This wasn't a constant thing. This only started some while back. So I haven't changed anything other than that. The only change I made was that the updating of the Google Meet.
I will
Right now,
this after show. Go on,
okay. No problem. Like I was gonna say, like right now he sounded perfect, but on a pre-show, he wasn't so perfect.
It's just one of those things. It depends how rough your line is. When I was listening back to the show in one of the drives yesterday or today, whenever you came on, I couldn't discern what you were saying through the obvious background noise of the road and tires and wind. But when anyone else spoke, I could, which tells me it's just the audio quality from you is just so poor that for whatever reason it's triggering one of the filters in G+ or Discord or wherever. But it's just you've got a rough mic. Let's just not go over it now. We've covered it on 4 shows, please.
It's grand. I just wanted to ask that. Just to
Fair
take that.
Well, start with a housekeeping question.
We're going to cover something else. I'll let the audience know. I mean, it's like a coming up on Flat Earth debate with the amount of things that we've got to do. It's fantastic. Wonderful. So one of the things we're going to cover, because a couple of people mentioned it in passing, as opposed to another person that directly mentioned this in Arwin's chat today. So somebody said, can you tell me which show you talked about addressing your own demons and or not becoming the very thing that you're fighting against as a subject matter? So he wanted to cover that because I think I mentioned it in passing on one of the previous shows. I don't know which one. But I said, no, I'll just discuss it today. It's far easier. It's a discussion point for the panel to go through. Although Arwin's not here and he may not appreciate me saying this, although I did mention it in his chat and he was kind of like, what are you talking about? Because he wasn't being that way that in that moment, I think is why he questioned it. But I'm like, yeah, both Arwin and I are prime examples of borderline becoming the monster that you've fought against. Arwin, perfect timing. So, you know, I'm pretty sure that, glad you're here, Arwin, we're just about to discuss a useful topic that you're directly related to, along with me, becoming the monster that you brace against. When I put it in your chat, I wasn't suggesting that in that moment, while you were talking about how government control the police just by coincidence, I wasn't suggesting that you were being like that in that moment. I'm just saying in the past, you and I have suffered from becoming the very monster that we're bracing against. Yeah? If you say no, then we're going to get into a debate about it because that's a fact. But we'll see. We'll see how you respond. Hello, by the way.
Hello? Were you talking to me?
Yeah, I was talking to you.
Were you talking to me? You
Yeah.
talking to me, Nathan? I wasn't
is
aware
funny.
of that, so it was kind of weird getting in there, and you were in the middle of a sentence, so...
Yeah, it's because I was talking specifically about you and I, And I said, it's unfortunate Arwen's not here at the moment because he would be a good contributor to this conversation. I even dropped it in. One of your chat commenters said, can you go back to a video and tell me which one it is where you were discussing addressing your own monsters and demons in the mirror and how you, as a participant of Flat Earth debate, can potentially become the monster you're fighting against. That was the sentiment of his chat. He was far more concise than I in repeating it.
Ah,
With me?
right.
We're on track now.
In my chat today, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I noticed you there.
Brilliant. I'm glad you did. And one of the things I said in your chat was that Arwen suffering from that occasionally. I didn't phrase it like that. I can't remember what I said, but maybe there'll be an intervention, lol. And you took it to mean that what you were saying in that moment was you becoming the monster you were bracing against, whilst talking about something that was so unrelated to you being like that, and you weren't being like that you took it the wrong way because it's chat. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying, now that we're all clear about what we're talking about, we can move forward with the actual discussion, which is becoming the monster you're fighting against, and indeed assessing whether or not that's happening in the mirror. We all cool now? Can we move on with that actual discussion? I'm going to talk to someone else. This is painful, Arwen. Give me something back. Come on.
No, what you need to do is just address you, Nathan, because Arwen is totally not getting what you're trying to lay down, and he's just kind of blasé about it. You need to just go straight into talking about you, and then you can bring Arwen in later when he's fully aware.
Well, now I certainly don't understand what he was talking about anymore. Now that you said that, Brian. What was he talking about?
You're being accused of having a lack of introspection, Arwen. That's what Brian's just done.
What?
You know what introspection is?
Yeah, no shit. I know what introspection is.
He's accusing you of having a lack of it. That's what just happened. This is.
Oh, that's an idiotic thing to say because I'm like obsessively introspective. It arguably ruined my life because I couldn't stop doing it. So, no, I don't have a lack of introspection. And I'm very well aware that in my desperation, sometimes I flip around and basically take the role of the enemy. It's a cheap scare tactic to rattle everybody awake like, hey, snap out of it or the enemy's at the door. That's what I do.
Well, there's that. Well, let me give my example. In doing these debates, I got to a point where it seemed like just getting someone to understand my position was more important than listening to what the other person had to say. And it took my wife pointing that out to me because that's what our opponents do. They're more interested in trying to get their stuff across. And so I had become what they were, and that bothered me.
Yeah. So that's a good example of the mirror. Now, in this case, it's your wife that's held that mirror up. But quite often when you look at it, brilliant, John, you don't like what you see. You go, whoo, that's horrible. What is it you're looking at there? Well, me. I know I am. It's unpleasant. It's not an easy thing to do. My example a couple of days ago was to say that I thought, let's have a look how things have changed, because there's a few people who I said, look, I'm going to make a conscious effort to be better at what I do so that it encourages people to share with my YouTube hat on and makes you, in some instances, there were Christians, which makes this example far easier because it makes sense, right? The Christians would say, your show's unshareable for me as a Christian. You go, yeah, okay, I see why. Now, this is previously as opposed to recently, although that is an ongoing thing with me, and I'm sure you can appreciate why. Yeah, I'm a work in progress in that regard. I don't need to disclaim too much, right? Let's not have too much introspection. Anyway, and I've gone back. I've gone, right, let's find a comment from a video that's not recent. So I've just scrolled down through my comments, of which there are bloody hundreds. Eventually, I found a comment from an old video. I've gone, okay, well, that's perfect. Let's go to have a look at that. I can even remember the name of the video. It's stupid SH expletive T that Flat Earthers say on Flat Earth Debate Part 1. And in that video, I thought, right, for a bit of introspection, let's have a listen and see if I can assess any actual change in how I've behaved after telling people that I am going to do that. You know, have I looked in the mirror enough? Has there been any change? And I listened back and I was bloody horrified because the person that's putting the claim to me in the video I watched is a mud flooder or whatever they're called. I don't know what you call that particular group of people. Anyway, he's claiming that buildings have been born out of the rocks with concrete having been liquefied to pour through existing buildings to become the hills. And he shows an archway and says this was just like this archway that he shows in a building that's got a similar shaped archway. Now, I absolutely lose my proverbial with this guy. And the claim's laughable. There was so little need for me to be the way I was with him. And it was truly, truly horrifying to listen back. I mean, good in a way, because I was like, oh, I wonder if I've actually changed at all. Am I just exactly the same person full of disdain and disgust because I've partially become the monster that I'm fighting against? Let's see if there's been any change. Well, yeah, there has. I have definitely made a change. You know, at the starting point of that, it's just I'll try and stop swearing. I say at the beginning of the intro because I know it's unshareable. I will try to do the same, you know, live by what you say. And it's very difficult, you know, especially if you're dealing with a sweary opponent. But nevertheless, you know, that monster is slightly tucked away. I don't know what else to say. Maybe people will be putting in the comments. I'm kind of imploring people to do that by saying this stuff because people are going to go, actually, I've looked at you and you are terrible. Here's why. You're like, okay, fine. What you'll get as a response is the introspection that I've done and discussed here. So that's me pouring my innermost out for the second or third time in the last 4 days. Someone else will hopefully pick up the reins. But thank you, John, because you started that example off. Priceless.
Well, what I would say about it is this, Nathan, if you allow me a moment to speak. There's a lot of people out there who have a lot of problems with your behaviour now. They didn't have a problem only a couple of years ago when you were vanquishing the ballers. They were all fully behind it. So they're hypocritical. Because when it suited them, they were fully behind it. But when it doesn't suit them, they're against it. Which shows that they're fickle, right? You're not being fickle. I wouldn't, if you want to personally change, then do, right? Do personally change if you want to personally change. But don't allow others to force you into it. Other people who would have been 100% behind that aggressive behaviour when it was going towards MC Town or Cats or Rumpus or someone, they would have been totally behind it then. They were totally in support of it when it was getting them the results that they needed. You were getting the results that they weren't getting.
Yeah, you're right.
No,
you are right. There were people.
Christian
I
realm.
don't agree and disagree.
Hold on.
There
But
were people who supported
this,
that. I'll go on. Someone from Discord trying to get a word in.
well, they're not. I think it's me and Neil. And I was just gonna say, yeah, you're describing how people felt. True enough, but I think what he's changing is something that a lot of us, me included, have said something needs to change because this way that we act, this kind of more cartoon version of how we'd really like to be just talking about the information. Why are we doing all this? Like, and so just because, you know what, it took us talking to each other to realize how bad it is because we couldn't see it when we were talking to the opposition. So it's a good thing for me. It is a problem because we can see it when we're talking across the table, and we couldn't see it back then just because the opposition, quote unquote, was nasty.
Right. Exactly. That's what I was going to disagree with. That's exactly what I was going to say, Eli, to Brian, which is, yes, I agree. There were plenty of people in the comment section that were telling me how wonderful I was, that then were, as you put it, very fickle when it came to me attacking Ether or whatever it was that they agreed with. Suddenly my attitude and personality was on the table for discussion where previously it wasn't, and it was praised. However, second time the Christian members of this particular fraternity get a mention, because back then too, the Christians, you know, it doesn't matter if I name any, I'm not going to drag 10th Man or Paula or any specific individual Christian into this, but we'll say there were more than one or more than 10 Christian members of this particular community who generally are very meek and remain mostly quiet until they have a serious objection. Now, their objection was the first stage of me having to hold up a mirror. And I can appreciate from a Christian point of view, because I'm not particularly putting out that rhetoric or putting out Christianity on this show, how a Christian would, as they have said to me, your show's unshareable because of all swearing or whatever it is that's being criticised in that particular moment. Now, I value that more than anything. Now, I don't think it's a coincidence that the counsel I receive from my Christian members is actually the best counsel. Now, that has no bearing on them being Christians, as much as they might like it to infer that, and maybe they would directly say it does, it's because I am a Christian. However, coincidence or otherwise, the best counsel I've received is from my Christian followers, the people who watch who are Christian, who have counselled me, often in times where they want to bugger off and despair at what I'm doing. So again, it takes a certain type of personality to go out of their way to express disapproval of things. I'm sure I'll discuss this on another show as well. So from that perspective, there is a certain degree of just heightened respect for my Christian viewers, even though I'm not necessarily what they would call one of them. Yeah? So for that reason, I have to look back on what's been successful in terms of my looking in the mirror and assessing what I'm doing and who it is that's highlighted it in the first place to get that ball rolling. Well, for you, as someone, normally it's your kids, your wife, the people who can't get away from you, right? I have to tell you, you're behaving horribly because they can't be around you because they can't get away from you. So intolerable behavior has to be pointed out. This is potentially where, a general Christian way of being would be exemplified in this particular attitude that's been taken towards me, which is to say, in a similar way, I'm going to put it as Christian as I can, we love you, but you are a shit. Now, that Christian's not going to say it like that. I get it. But I'm just saying that's essentially the essence of what I'm getting. Now, for someone to approach you like that, it does take an aspect of love to do that. Because if you don't have that, it's far easier to just bugger off, isn't it? Let's be honest. Yeah? It takes effort to say to somebody, you would be helping yourself. It would be to your advantage. And it certainly isn't to mine pointing this out to you for you to stop doing this horrible behaviour. And like I say, that counsel is the counsel I've received from Christians. I'm just gonna be upfront and say that because it's a fact. Anyway, there we go. We're having a little. What's this? Like an intervention without an individual. I don't know what you'd call that.
Well, let me put it a little bit different here. There's nothing wrong with introspection and nothing wrong with looking and holding up the mirror. But once it's done for you wanting to do it, as opposed to being pressured into it. Now, I understand there's certain situations where family members do interventions and stuff with their, because they have a drug addict or whatever in their family. I get that, but this is not that type of thing. What I would say to you is, if I wanted to encourage you to do it, I'd encourage you to do it because you want to do it. But what I would say to you is, you didn't need to be, you don't need to be that level of nasty to win. You actually don't need to do that at all. You just need to have more confidence. What I would say to you is, you need to have more confidence in the things you're arguing about, but also the way to have more confidence is to learn the details. Then you're confident in it. Because technically, you're a better debater than I am.
Oh, sorry.
I have more confidence because I have more
you were actually talking
details.
to me when you said you. I thought you were generalising to the audience, but you are actually directly to me.
I'm talking directly to you.
Oh, how lovely.
Your letdown is you don't need to be as aggressive. You need to accept that when your enemy is not going to concede, what you need to do is get more detailed. Because I have more confidence, right, when I'm speaking to the enemy than you, but I'm not as good a debater as you. You'll catch things that they'll say that I won't catch. But I have confidence because I have far more details in my arsenal. Because I've sat back and I made a point of learning. When I didn't know something and I was going up against one of them, right, and I knew it was coming up, I made a point of doing my best to learn it as much as possible and find out what that thing was, whatever it might be, whatever accelerometers, whatever the issue might be. Right, over the years, I needed to know, because then I have details and I understand and I can argue from a position of understanding, as opposed to what happens with you is you look for, I have to say this, you look for the fastest way out when it comes to the details of something, and you don't get all the fine bits. Whereas if you have those fine bits, you won't. It's like you have confidence then that you can't buy. You don't need to be as aggressive. You just need to use your intellect and make a point of not being so intellectually lazy.
I know I'm lazy.
That's what happens. I understand you're a busy man. I understand you have a family, so I can't expect you to have the same amount of time on
it's
hand
just
to
laziness.
research
I'll
stuff
just
as
back
much as me.
Brian so he knows I'm not disagreeing with him before someone else pipes up. Yes, Brian, I am lazy. For example, it's not just because I've got family and excuses that I can easily mitigate for that claim. I'm not going to. I'll prop it up. So when I'm in debate, citation, you say, no, I'll take this one on my chin so I don't have to go and get one. I'll just make the argument with that one. I don't need a citation to make this argument. It's mine. It's mine. You just deal with me. Don't worry about not having one. Why? I can't be bothered to go get one or learn them, look them up and research them. Nah. If I know the argument, I don't need them. The argument stands alone and I'll win with the argument, so I don't need citations. I'm just lazy. You're right, I am.
Yes.
I'd be more
Before
effective
you
if I
let
had them,
those-
though. And
Yes,
you're right.
yes, but I know the argument too, but I know it better than you because I made a point of learning the details.
Yeah, you're far better research.
That's the point I'm
far
making.
more
That's the point I'm making. Yeah,
You're
I'm
far
not a
more
better
diligent than
debater
I.
than you. You're better than I am.
No. Let's not scratch each other's backs. We're here to what's the word? Be detrimental to each other to a certain extent. The audience is loving it. We're going to talk to the chat as well. I don't know if you guys, just so I can preemptively tell you, we're going to go to the chat soon and talk to some of the chat participants when you're going to love this section. Yeah, you're far more diligent than I am. You do your research. You do primary source research, right? Which I gave up on ages ago. I literally lean on you. If I say this because it's true in the chat often, right? If it wasn't for the panel, I'd have nothing here. Right? That is the bottom line, because I don't do any research. I really don't. I just steal it. And I'm going to put my hands in the air, and I confess to it every time I do it. It's not like I'm hiding this. But it's because I lean on the more, I'm not going to say more intelligent, because it makes it sound like, oh, well, I'm just stupid, therefore I can get away with not doing this research. Brian's got a point, right? Don't be lazy. Don't be intellectually lazy. He's not saying I'm lazy. I mean, I'm getting a bit fat, but you know what I mean? He's saying don't be intellectually lazy. And he's absolutely right. I've just got to agree with him because it's a fantastic point.
Only because it gives you, only because it means when you're in a debate, you don't have the confidence you should have. You shouldn't need Adam there, or QE, or John, or Kent Man, Neil, me, Eli, anyone. Do you know what I mean? You shouldn't need anyone else there. If you're going to debate on a topic, you should have the details. It's not your ability to debate, right? That's no one's questioning that. It's unquestionable. But it's, if you have all the details, then you'll have a confidence. So you sit back calm.
I'll even pop it with an example. I'll give you an example. There was a debate recently, and there's no question that I was winning the debate. And we're talking about the sky vacuum and NASA and how NASA navigate a flat plane. And the guy's being asked for a citation that he's not providing because I'm demanding one. Double standards, of course, right? And he's not propping his argument up with any citation. And I say, well, NASA described the Earth as flat, but I don't actually provide any citation. I invite him to challenge my claim that there is one, because then I don't have to go and get it. So I position it in such a way that I postulate that NASA say it's flat and dealt with flat and flown on flat and to be dealt with as non-rotating, non-moving, yeah? But I don't cite it. Now, the argument would have continued indefinitely without me citing it. I'd have still won. But as soon as chocolate, in this case, Brian, so you don't need chocolate there, right? Now, he's not saying I don't need them. I could easily respond and go, no, I don't need them there, and take it personally and go, oh, I'm perfectly, you know what I mean? I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to prop his argument up and go, yeah, in that example, chocolate went and got the citation. Oh, by the way, Nathan, he interrupted as I shouted him down and told him off for interrupting my excellent debating. I've got that citation for you. Oh, right, okay. Then Neil interrupted and did get told off because he was interrupting unjustifiably. And then I went and brought up the citation. That made the video. That became an edited video. Why? Because it became highly effective as soon as that citation was put up on screen. Did I go and dig it out? Did I hell? Right, chocolate did it for me. Right, now, again, I could mitigate and say I didn't need it, and I'd be right, and I could easily argue that, and Brian would end up agreeing with me with all the logic I inferred. But Brian's still right? There's a more effective tool that can be employed, but it requires a bit of intellectual, not integrity, what's the word? Fortitude, being a bit less lazy. Yeah, we're all guilty.
That's a perfect example. Let me just, because I know Eli's getting bored now waiting to say something, but when you were there that day and you were trying to recite the main part of that citation, and there's other similar citations from Boeing and Lockheed and others, right? The main part of that, you weren't really doing a good verbatim job of relaying it because you were trying to do it by memory and you hadn't memorized it. Whereas I did memorize it from the very first time I saw it. It's flat, stationary, non-rotating Earth, right? Right, that covers all of those types of citations, right? Whether it be from Boeing, NASA, any of them. That is basically all they all basically mirror each other, and that's what's in there. So even if you weren't getting the citation, if you just remember that part verbatim, that way you can say it with confidence because you know it's in there. You know someone won't get it and go, "That's not what you said a minute ago."
For the audience's
have
benefit,
exactly-
Brian's not trying
yeah.
to educate me on that specific point. It's the overarching point of generally not being intellectually lazy rather than, oh, yes, Brian, I understand your point, and then reciting that example back to him. That's not what he's trying to educate me in. He's trying to get me to be less intellectually lazy. Now, when I say me, I am now going to connect that to the you. Put yourself in
Close
my
your ears,
position.
relax yourself.
And you're going to get there. We're going to get there, Eli, I promise. Go on. We've had enough of this. Go ahead. And then we'll get to the chat. We cleared the airwaves for hot micing. Is that what's just happened?
No, I think that yeah, to build on what Brian is saying, I guess if I may introduce a critique.
You may.
Okay. So when it does go into back and forth debate mode, we're fine and dandy letting you do your thing. It just takes a long time to get to the conclusion. Sometimes it's the whole rest of the show, and it sucks the energy out of what the show might have been if, yeah, I mean, you still get to a conclusion where they've just been belligerent and been talking through. But if you got a citation and force them to get a citation where they're going to go, no, I'm not going to do that, and you provided one, you can be like, well, get off my show, and everybody will understand clearly you won, and it wouldn't need to take forever.
Oh, brilliant. Yes, and I have made an example of that, which comes out of giving me the perfect segue into a video that's going to be released tonight showing exactly that. Perfect segue. Thank you, Eli. So, later on this evening, before 3-4 day ago show gets released on the second channel at 9 p.m. UK time, as it always does, there's going to be a show come out on this channel. So that's Nathan Oakley 1980. And that is called... Where's my channel? I'll bring it up as quick as I can. It's called Del Minion Proves Earth Rises Up! ! But seriously, dishonesty goes beyond the imaginative conman. That's what the video is called. So it's got a picture of a man pressing an elevator button with a globe head coming into the elevator. That's the name of the video. What did you just say, Eli? There was a segue, a perfect segue that I've now forgotten for why I was recommending that video.
Eli was pointing out that you take a long time to get to the point. Go on, Eli. Sorry.
No, that wasn't the point I was going to segue with.
Not even.
Cheeky bastard.
Oh, if you remember, go on.
That wasn't the point I was going to segue with. There was something else.
What I
The
was gonna say
citations ending the, forcing them to provide a citation where you've provided one, and they say no. Nah.
No, I can't remember. That wasn't what it was. It'll come back to me. Go ahead, John.
It was about ending the show or coming to the conclusion quicker.
Kicking people out.
And the thing
That was what it
is,
was. I've
a-
remembered. It was about kicking people out. So your attitude is to say the show would usher along a lot quicker if it got to a point where you've tried to put your point, they haven't provided a citation. Well, in this example, it wasn't providing a citation. It wasn't acknowledging a rebuttal that ended the argument and repeating more than 5 times. And then he gets ejected. And at the end, I give a little preamble that was basically along the lines of what Eli just said, which is to say, at the point that somebody refuses to accept a rebuttal and instead launches into, I'm going to expose you. This is a Dal minion, you can probably tell. But I'm going to remove them very calmly because that's the end of their time in the discussion because they have become unreasonable. So yes, that was the segue. I'm glad we got there in the end. So check that video out because I can finally round up the actual plug. to Dell's Minion Proves Earth Rises Up, and that's coming out at 8:45 this evening. So if you know what time my second channel publishes a video, it's a quarter of an hour before that comes out, but on this channel. So that's 8:45 UK time, PM. So yeah, check it out. Be Here or Be Sphere on the Nathan Oakley 1980 channel. Subscribe today, share to one, share to all. We round up this conversation. We've had half an hour on it. I heard nothing from Arwin, the main person I was hoping would have the most introspection at the moment, given the amount that I've poured my heart out in regards to what a monster I've been over the years. Total silence from Arwin. Absolutely nothing.
Well, can I address something while Arwen's...
Go on, John.
Well, the thing is, I think another problem is the reason the conclusion doesn't come is because when you're in these debates and you know you're right and they're only proving your point, it's almost like an intellectual bloodlust. And the other panel members can feel it too when there's blood in the water, proverbially. Anyway, but everyone can feel it. Everybody wants to jump in. Yeah, Neil says share. But that's part of the reason. And that's something that we need to look at ourselves and see is that really necessary? Once you've got them there, is it necessary to keep doing it?
Yeah, that and Brian's mic. Both need looking at. Right, we're going to go to the chat. Shout out to all of you in the chat. This is going to be something that I do a bit more of. Again, I'm reacting to what people have told me that they want from the comment section.
One thing beforehand.
Oh, go ahead.
One thing before you do. The other day when you said when you had gone to Earth Awakenings, the server, you said, "No, I'm doing this now and I'm doing that now. I'm not being that way anymore," and blah blah blah. Don't say it. Just do it, right? Because once you say it, you're held to it. Right, and when you don't do it, then you're the worst person in the world because you said you would. Just do it and don't say it at all.
Okay. It's hard to do on a. It's very hard to do on a show about introspection, but in general, I agree.
I understand that now. But this is a show about introspection. This is like it's cat's out of the bag now. Do you know what I mean? But this is something we could have had this conversation privately. The point is that people, when you say something and you don't do it, it's not always that someone doesn't do something because they're too lazy or they can't or whatever. Things get in the way and people can't complete things, and that happens. But that's all people remember is the thing you couldn't complete. Whereas if you don't say it and just do it, all people will remember is the thing that you did.
You're talking to the audience, right? It's directed at the audience in general?
Well, everybody, but for you, you're better off not saying it.
Brian's right, because Whitson is quick to bring it back up.
Yeah, but see, that's why I brought up what I brought up. And you know what? This conversation is going along like poetry, because what I'm about to say ties into what John just said about the bloodlust. And I realized it, which is why in most of my conversations, I end them quickly. Not that I'm quitting. I just find a citation and then I force them to do the same to the point at which they look ridiculous not doing it. And then I end the conversation. A lot of people think that's boring, but I just think it's effective. Because if I continue arguing with them, then I start doing that bloodlust thing where I'm playing with them like they're a mouse and I'm a cat. Now I feel that like, yeah, look at that misstep he took. I'm going to expose him. And it's just going to last forever because we can like we're like vampires that way. Like we can see the blood and we want, like if you end it quickly, you'll never get to that point. It's even times you were speaking to Whitsitt where it's like, yo, Whitsitt's agreeing with you while saying he's disagreeing. Can't you see it? Just stop the conversation.
Easier said than done, but I appreciate your sentiment. Right, Neil, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you can say, I'll make it.
Hey, good morning, Chocolate. Go ahead, Neil.
Sorry, Neil.
I was just saying, you could say I'm making effort, because when you say you're gonna, Whitsitt's the first one there saying, look, his apology was useless, basically. I don't know what words he used because he talks so fast, but in essence, that's what he says.
Yeah, but see, people are going to jump on that immediately. When you say you're going to do something and then you don't do it, the first thing, that's all they're interested in doing, jumping on it. Don't ever say it, just do it.
People are going to get really angry with me if I don't move on, because I've said I'm going to move on to the chat 5 times. They're going to get so annoyed with me, Brian.
I'm not holding up. You go ahead, sorry. I just wanted to get that
just I'm segueing with your point into the chat. It was just
you said you were going to, so now you have to, yeah.
You've got it. Okay. Right, first of all, yeah, I'm going to do a bit more with the chat. So just be prepared, because I can put it on screen and I will. So if you say something you regret, as I've done in chats in the past, then just let it be known. It's going to be on screen a bit more often, not just when the super chats fly by. Smash the super chat, by the way, if you do want to support the show. Obviously, hello, Divergent Droid. So Divergent Droids, I'm not going to just piss off every single moderator by saying this, but he's my best mod. Sorry if you thought you were my best mod. Divergent Droid is. It's got to be said, he's the best mod in every chat that he's in. If he's a moderator, he's going to be the best moderator, because he is. Just the way it is. Anyway, thank you very much for putting out the sentiment that I'd love, which is telling people to like and share. First comment from a non-mod, Dorian Gray. Good to have you, my friend. Oh my God, does Arwin ever stop asking for money? I mean, I ask daily, just as much as Arwin does for money, because he in poverty, we're brothers in poverty, right? Arwin's really, really skint. Don't blame him constantly begging. I'm sure he probably gets less support than I do. And yeah, he's poor, so am I. I can totally relate to that. In fact, privately, that's most of the things me and Arwin relate to each other. My God, I'm poor. How overdrawn are you? Yeah, well, you don't know how overdrawn is. I'm much more. That's the kind of sentiment. Yeah, Arwin's poor. Yeah? Why poke that? Yeah, okay, we know. Yeah, he begs. Yeah, so do I. So what? And then saying, Oliver win. Very amusing. Uncommon sense, yes. Good to have you. Nice to see you. What up, DD? Good to see you in the chat. Incoming. Okay. Hey, Tony, good to see you. Unindoctrinated, or however you say that. How'd you say that? Unindoctrinated. That'll do. Good to see you. DJ D637. Afternoon all. Afternoon to you too. See if we can get any points that are being asked, any questions that are being asked of us. DD pointing out how many people are watching. Yeah, please share the show if you haven't done so already. Well done for admitting that. Orange is the new egg. Maybe expand on what it is you're congratulating us on admitting. Maybe I can react to it, or one of the panel will if it's one of them that you're talking to. Is Planet Peterson here yet? I doubt that Planet Peterson would come. I don't know how smart or stupid the guy is. I can only go by what we've reacted to thus far. Who is it that said that? Are they going to mention? Orange is a new egg. Yeah. No. Jeff. No, where is it? Sensual Goat. Yes. Is Planet Peterson here? Yeah, I did put an open invitation out to him, but it is an open door bar. It's like me going to the bar door opening and going, "Oi, random name. You're going to come in here?" May not even be watching the show, so it doesn't really mean much. It's the sentiment behind it in the moment that matters. What else we got in here?
Still trying to figure out which way the stars are rotating.
Yeah, exactly. We can only point out the stupid nonsense that he says, right? So there we go. Yeah, anyway, hello to you, Sensual Goat. I'll get better at these chat interactions over time. Is this the first one? I don't normally do this. Also, good day to you, Jeff. Jeff Gashead. I see. Trolls just want to control everything. Yeah, there's only a limited amount of trolly control that they can exercise over the chat, though, eh? Or the comment section. Good to see you, Twitwit. Nice to have you. I think the monster is hypocrising. What is that? I can't see it this distance. Hypocrisy. I think the monster is hypocrisy, Nathan. Again, maybe expand on what you mean. I'll react to it if I can get an idea of what you mean. My monster is hypocrisy. The monster, generally speaking, is hypocrisy. What do you mean? We'll see what Twitwit means. Hopefully we'll find out. What else we got? Anybody I've not said hello? Matrix Media, good to see you. Groovy, good to see you. It all depends on what is your goal. Run a show? Can you have a character and be entertaining? What's that line from Pulp Fiction? Something about being character and having character. When the wolf character's talking to the daughter of the scrapyard. Sure, there's a good Pulp Fiction quote in there somewhere. Anyway, good to have you. Nice to see you, Groovy. I've not said hello to you already. I will get to the end eventually. Man, there's loads of people in the chat. Was 777 says sup flatties. Sky, my friend. RJC. Iron FE. That's a claim of stationery with nothing to back it. That's what I covered on that video that's going to come out tonight. So stationery, that's non-existent movement, isn't a claim. That's not a positive assertion. So that's precisely what I go through on that video. Be here or be sphere, 9:15 UK time, PM tonight, today. If you're watching live, obviously, that comes out. It might be the same guy as RJC, the guy that I was talking to yesterday.
Yes.
It's him. He's in the chat. Nice to see you. Bev Minion. Not Bev Minion, Dal Minion. Let's get it right.
Yeah, well, no
He
action
said
is not a claim of something.
Say again, Brian. 100 people watching. Please share the show. Good to have you all.
Nothing happening is not a claim of something.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Something has to be, you need to be saying, this is happening and show that it's happening. You know what I mean? Stationary, nothing happening. And the observation of nothing happening is not making a claim. It's an observation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's incredibly difficult to do as well.
Let
Let me give you an example. It's incredible for you, Brian, right? You're on a beach. You're in your shorts. The sun is out. You're sunbathing. You've got your factor 50 on. You with me? You're there. You're feeling hot. Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. I turn to you and say, prove there's no storms.
Yeah, it's like, how do you say? There just isn't. You know what I mean? You'd have to prove that there is a storm. You know?
No.
No, the
Prove that there
problem
is a
is they
non-existent.
say that you claim it, that you make the claim in the way you debate it.
No, just the observation. We all make the observation that the earth is stationary. It's an observation that we make because we experience stationary.
It is
we
actually.
have no evidence that we don't.
Careful, Brian. No, what I think Neil's driving at is it's redundant to say it. Now, don't get me wrong. If someone comes along and goes, "Here you go," here's you saying it. Yeah, well, so what? Do I need to back that as a positive assertion, aka claim of non-existence, when you have a positive claim of movement? No, you're the positive claimant. You'll be putting your crappy proof by tossing bottles around, and I'll be laughing at you. What's that? I've got to prove that it ain't moving. No, it doesn't work like that. Oh, what? It must work like that so that you can have a decent false dichotomy argument and show how wrong I am in a claim I'm not needed to make. Nah. It used to work 5 years ago. Not anymore.
The whole thing is debunked by weighing scales. All of them claims, just like by Einstein, is debunked by weighing scales. Because weight doesn't exist within that paradigm. So there was no mechanism in place for my weight and your weight on a scale to be different. They can't ever be different. They can only be a zero. Every time we stand on a scales, we must read zero because we don't have weight, so we don't have inertia. So there's nothing to press for the scales to press against. Do you understand what I mean? When you stand on the weighing scales, there's a ground underneath the scales, and you stand on it, and your weight presses down upon the scales. Right? That's how weighing scales work. The ground underneath is stationary, you stand on it, and your weight creates the figure on the scales. But within that paradigm, and the same for general relativity, weight does not exist. So when you stand on the scales, it must read zero if their paradigm is correct, because nothing has weight. There is no weight to anything. It's because weight is only apparent within that paradigm. It's not that the phone has weight and is falling down. It's that the earth is coming up. Their phone isn't falling at all. So you place that phone on a weighing scales, it can't weigh anything. You understand?
Yeah, they don't get it, Brian. they definitely don't get it.
Well, it's that simple. Like the same thing that bunks them, whether they're claiming an acceleration or a constant movement, or it also debunks Einstein and general relativity, these equivalence principles. It doesn't work in reality because weight scales exist, and because weight exists. If weight doesn't exist, then we can't have a weight.
I might be able to help them. What Brian's done is he's given a tacit acceptance of your claim, and then he has shown how your claim does not hold up if you accept it as true. That's what Brian just did. He has debunked the positive assertion that the Earth is rising up. We are not making a positive claim to have to back it in the first place. So I still don't think people are getting that.
Nah, it'll take a while. But that first video is my attempt at that, because it makes it really explicitly clear in about 4 minutes. So check that out. It comes out tonight. We'll carry on in the chat. The reason it's great for you, Nathan, to speak on this introspective, in quotes, topic isn't because you have come to a realization, but to force Arwin. Mike 808. Arwin's been decisively quiet, actually, Mike. So I don't know about that. Twitwit, the original topic seems to have shifted from the intended discussion, but ironically ended up being an example of the intended discussion. Sounds very ironic. Try thinking. You should have done this in private. Okay. Richard G, there's something of an Irish wisdom. Maybe. Good to have you. Who was that? Richard G.
Can I just speak to the commenters that are saying you should have done this in private?
Bev.
Done what? Realize that, yeah. But anybody who has that sentiment, because I think someone else also said it. So done. What should we do in private? Decide that we should stop going back and forth with people who've clearly violated laws of logic. Why? That's what you're saying we should have done in private. That's all we're talking about. Not going back and forth with people who don't want to concede that they're wrong or don't have a point at all.
That's not what he's saying.
That's all we're talking about.
God, I can't believe you've put me in a position where I have to defend Bev. No, that isn't what he's saying. It's what you've just inferred. He just said you should have done this. Well, you can infer what you like from that in private. We don't know what this is. That's why I didn't speak to it. But we all know now from you. What's that scene in Godfather where the one son's being told not to reveal his hand to the drug dealers?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, he says, I have a sentimental weakness for my children. They speak when they should listen.
I wish it
and then he
wasn't
yells
put
at
like that.
Sonny after Salazzo leaves.
Yeah, I wish I hadn't put it like that, because now in context, Eli's my child. I mean, yes, we're both black, but that's racist to assume that he's my son just because of that. Moving on. The way is truth. Good to have you. Says, we clearly don't live on the surface of a rotating oblate spheroid, mostly covered in water, hurtling through an infinite vacuum of an aimless, godless journey nowhere. Peace. Yeah, maybe in 2023 I'd have said that too. It is true. I would rephrase that to Earth is measured flat. So put your front foot forward. Good to have you. The way it's...
AKA the magical spinning water ball.
Yeah. Who else we got in here that I haven't spoken to
Oh.
yet? Kevlar, nice to see you.
Can I share?
Go ahead.
Sorry. I saw the greatest preview for a movie. This is a hell of a segue right now. I'm sorry, I know you're doing your chat thing, but I had to bring it up because I've never been so excited to see a preview for a movie.
3-body problem?
No. The ISS, the movie, is coming out.
Oh, yeah, somebody brought that up the other day.
I just saw the preview for it yesterday and I was dying. I've never been so, elated to see some nonsense like that. I can't wait to see it.
Well, then you'll be excited for this one, too, because there's one I seen last night called 3-body problem.
See,
Chocolate,
I
the
wish I
ISS
shared
one is going to
your.
be a home video.
I wish I shared your enthusiasm. To be honest, Chocolate, I don't. So this is casting my mind so far back, right? The computer before this one, I started to buy enormous hard drives. I've got 4 of them. I mean, they're not enormous by modern standards. They're 6 terabytes. But the first couple, I just filled with all of my DVDs. Now, this was just before Flat Earth, right? And most of my DVDs and Blu-rays and whatnot were all space stuff. So I was, so keen. I've got this mad amount of entertainment at my fingertips. I can find all these movies just a click of a button. Wow. Put them on, a space movie on my big screen. Fantastic. Then you find out Earth's flat. Suddenly, when you go back to one, or for me, when I go back to one of those movies, it is difficult, nay, impossible to suspend disbelief. So when you watch Superman fly around the globe to spin time backwards, there are many different levels of that narrative that I can no longer suspend disbelief to enjoy the movie. I just can't do it. So ISS, the fact that it's paralleled with a claim to be real light in a sky vacuum that isn't in a sky vacuum and has its own literal movie claimed to be real that's got a movie being made about it, it's one level further into the suspension of disbelief that I couldn't tolerate to begin with. So my heart sank in that regard to my computer and the movies on it. When I found out Earth is flat, I was like, well, that was a waste of time. I put it in one of my vlogs. I was like, well, that was a complete waste of time. What's all those thousands of movies going to be useful for now? Because they're unwatchable for me.
Yeah. While I understand that, I don't know if for some reason it was something about it being the ISS. And they're going with the story. You remember that? I don't know. I guess you call it feast of nonsense or whatever you want to call it. But when they used to say, well, why would why would Russia and America get along on the ISS, but on Earth, they're all at war, they're all fighting. That's literally the story of it. So a war breaks out on Earth while Russians and Americans are on the ISS. And now it's like a whole plot to take over the ISS. It was just so funny. I had to share. I was just like, oh my God, can't wait to tell these dudes. I should have shared it in Skype. Sorry, but
there's a
Well,
Freudian
to be honest-
slip there, Chocolate. I just looked it up. I'd not heard of it. We've just looked at the title bits at the end. So there's a quote, which I think they've probably not thought about. It turns out in space, they can hear you
they
scream.
can hear you scream, yeah.
Not a vacuum then. Okay.
Well, what I would say about it is I'm happy Chocolate brought it up, and I laugh at the idea of it, but I have absolutely zero interest in ever watching it.
That's a good way of putting it, Brian. It is a useful discussion point, and to assess the psychology of those who watch it, those who produced it, and those who the story is based on. All fictional. Well, that's interesting to discuss. As for actually watching it, I wouldn't get the enjoyment out of watching it for the reasons I watch movies. So I wouldn't pay for that. No, it just wouldn't.
I wouldn't get that enjoyment, but there's a different enjoyment I get out of watching heliocentric based movies now. I don't really know how to explain it, but it's like just to contrast that to what they're showing us in the movies to
There's
real
rubbernecking.
life. Say again?
Rubbernecking. You're just rubbernecking. You've slowed down to watch the car crash.
Yeah. 'Cause it's a car crash, man. The freaking globe. Come on, we're living on a magical spinning water ball. It's a car crash. Yes, I could have put it better myself. And this is the car crash I like to watch. So, yeah, I'm gonna enjoy the shit out of it.
Well, check out the trailer for Three Body Problem. You're gonna like that one too.
Is it another mafia movie?
It's another one of your
No,
memory
it's-
loss ones, isn't it, Neil?
No.
Three
It's
men in
about,
prison
it's
cell.
about Einstein's three-body
So you guys-
problem.
Hey, Paulie, we got a 3-body problem.
You guys are definitely gonna watch Oppenheimer, right?
Hey, we just need 3 trunks.
I've watched it.
Why? Nuclear weapons don't exist, right, Nathan?
I've watched it.
Well, I mean, they're talking about how light's a particle and a wave, you know. So I thought that'd be interesting.
What's really good in it is that Werner Heisenberg is directly referenced in it, and they have someone playing his part, and how he has nothing to do with it.
No, Neil, I think those
Oppenheimer. It's a good movie, though. Very good movie.
I think those nuclear bombs are absolutely devastating to those little miniature towns that they built to demonstrate them with.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realise, and it's something that I didn't know till years ago, that they have blow up military vehicles and blow up military things. They're all like these. You see this whole landscape of all this tents and military vehicles and all this other stuff, and it's all made up. It's all blown up.
Are you talking about the inflatable tanks?
Balloons.
Tanks.
Yeah, inflatable tanks, all this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, make the battlefield. It was much cheaper to just have 3 tanks and 25 blow-up tanks, and then you look like you've got an entire decimating crew. And when the few shells go flying, you know, it has a much better effect. I mean, yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? Some people take that to say the whole thing's fake, and you're like, isn't that again fallacy of division? Well, just because you've got one part that you can show does have blow-up tanks, so you're saying that there's no tanks. Literally 3 or 4 days ago, we happened to drive past part of the country where I don't know who the guy is, right? He's got a sign outside, you know, want to drive a tank? And we pulled in because we passed it on the way, and passing it on the way back, we're like, I'll have to stop there and have a look at all those tanks. And when we pull up, this guy's got these like razor wire with what kind of dog was it? Rottweilers. Right, he's got a whole bunch of Rottweilers, right? And then in front of that, all these tanks that you can just drive. You can just hire them and drive them, these surplus tanks. Now, believe me, none of them were blow up. You know, I'd show my kids around them, admittedly with barking Rottweilers, fending us away from the scene. But nevertheless, you know, to infer that just because they do have blow up tanks, that suddenly, all war is fake. I'm not going to go that far. In terms of the propaganda that goes along with war, most of us were educated about that in high school. So if you're not acutely aware that there's a massive amount of propaganda that goes alongside it, but people take it to extremes, and then the next thing you know, you're violating YouTube terms of service by saying that certain people who have clearly died and passed along because of war did not die. And you're like, yeah, I can understand why people will get pretty upset about that. You know, but there are certain things that you can infer from the propaganda that you can expose, and there's certain things that you can't, and there's certain things that they claim to be true that aren't provable by them, the positive claimant, and you can point those out as well. And again, you're not going to be breaching any terms of service by doing so, but many a channel has been lost because they've, you know, inferred something that's outrageous and upsets a lot of people. Anyway, we've gone way off topic. While we're off topic, we've already done an hour of the live stream, so by rights I might have like rounded out at this point, but I did actually want to cover a video that someone brought up off the cuff, Brian, I believe, and said that we may or may not want to cover it, but as soon as I saw it, even the title makes me want to really cover it and keep the live stream going just to do that. So maybe take an audience perspective, as we have been a bit more chat interactive today than we are typically.
I have to say, it's directly, see those people out there those people on the thumbnail? It's based around them. He does a lot of videos on that particular couple, and just letting you know, the whole video is based around an interview that they did. So the topic will be very specifically about them.
Okay,
so if you don't want that on your
just
channel,
for those listening,
right?
You know. It's the parents of Madeleine McCann that are on screen, and they've been analysed to death by various different channels. So if you're unaware of the Madeleine McCann disappearance in Portugal, maybe check out some Richard D. Hall videos if you want the conspiratorial side, or just check out some of the mainstream rhetoric. If you want a background to what actually occurred, they were out, they left their kids in a reasonably close villa in a house. When they came back, their daughter had disappeared after they'd been I don't know if it's a few yards or a few hundred yards away, eating dinner with friends. Upon return, their twins are still there, but their eldest daughter, named Madeline, had completely vanished and has never been found. So they've been subsequently interviewed by the police and various other media outlets, and this will presumably be one of those interviews that he's going to be dissecting in terms of how to use it as an example for his video, which is called How to Spot a Charity Scam. So that's the name of the video if you want to check this out. I will put a link to the videographer, which is Deception Detective. So Deception Detective is the name of the YouTube channel. As I say, I've just put a link to his channel. Please let him know, or her, at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, and we responded to your video, or whatever it is that you want to indicate that's inoffensive and doesn't immediately get removed because you're barking some flat earth rhetoric at him as a whatever you are. Anyway, hopefully I babbled long enough for a few of the live audience to actually do this. I'm nearly done, guys in G+, I promise. So if you are in the live audience right now, actually click on the link. You can see it's going on screen now. It's in the live stream chat if you are watching live. Click on it, go to the guy's channel, just say, at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Give him a like, give him a positive comment, help him along in the algorithm. The reason I encourage you to do this is because I would hope to get the same in return, were this guy to respond to whatever we get wrong when we're talking about analysis of this subject, which we are definitely not experts in, so there's a good chance we'll get stuff wrong and he might want to correct us or whatever. You know, hopefully, if he were to do so, he'd put a link to my video in it and share in the algorithmic love that we as flat earthers definitely do not receive from YouTube. So with that being said, any preamble from, I presume it's Brian?
Yeah, I just want to say that I sent you that purely for your own entertainment to watch, that you would be interested in it. I wasn't promoting it as a video you should review, because I didn't want to do that in case it was a topic you didn't want to review. Just letting you know, in case everything goes wrong and you say, Brian, you shouldn't have asked me to review that video, I wasn't asking you to review it.
No, I don't think so. I mean,
okay.
The fact that it's published on YouTube to begin with makes me know that obviously it's not spiked anything that wouldn't get me, or that would get the video entirely removed, because this video hasn't been. So if it happens to be so close to the edge that it hits a community strike, there may be a chance that I've got to edit something out, or I don't know, maybe. But I'm prepared to take the risk.
The only issue you might have is the PR team who represent the McCanns. They come after people. He said they use the same tactics as Scientology. Same tactics where they come after people who review or attack them in any way. They come after people. So you might have some
hold on.
nonsense in that way.
Would you suggest that part of this would involve us critiquing the parents of Madeleine McCann? Because my understanding is that we're going to be listening to the guy who's exposing how to spot a charity scam with an example using them. We're not necessarily going to directly critique them anyway, and if we do, we do. I mean, so what? If there's a PR team...
I'm just giving you all the warnings before.
No, I don't care.
I just want to be fully aware.
I accept full responsibility from the PR team that defends Madeleine McCann and her parents in this instance, should it trigger any red flags by sympathisers of their plight. I don't know how we'd be in any way detrimental to that. I don't really follow, but maybe that'll become obvious as we listen. Any other comments?
How can you not comment and not be detrimental in this case?
Yeah.
Speak up, Adam.
I said, how can you expect any comment? I mean, of all the hot topics, the things that, how can we comment on anything in this? Honestly.
What are you, be blunt? Are you saying, don't do this, let's round out the live stream and do it?
I would suggest, do you want to go down a den of satanic paedophilia or not? Because that's where you're heading.
This guy, he's an ex-defense attorney, and he covers it very, very level-headedly. You may not agree, I don't agree with absolutely all of his sentiment, but he goes through the logical fallacies. He's just pulling apart. If you focus more on him as opposed to on them, he pulls apart the type of nonsense that lawyers go through. So he doesn't just focus on them in his videos. He focuses on different topics and different people, but they're probably his biggest topic at present, because that's what most people want to see.
We've heard your, obviously, and you've given me fair warning, and Adam's now expressed his opinion. Is there any other opinions from the panel? And then we'll ask the chat, and then we'll make a decision from there. We'll do it as a group, as we've had lots of introspection today.
Review the video.
Yeah, good. Do start it, and you know yourself where you need to stop it.
I'll know within 3 minutes if we need to stop doing this,
Yeah,
and I'll just round up the live stream. And I'll prepare the audience in the chat. So If you're in the chat listening, great. If you think it's a bad idea, let me know. If you're happy for us to continue, let us know. Give us your ideas and thoughts.
The reason that they have the fund and they fund their own investigation is so that they can control the narrative, so that they can overwhelm the actual police with leads and red herrings to follow, and waste their time and their resources with stuff sent to them by their private investigators in order to prevent the police from looking back at them, the obvious suspects. And
okay, so he's postulating that if you overwhelm a subject with spurious subjects to cover, the overall truth won't be, regardless of his opinion on what is or isn't truth in this instance. I entirely agree. It's called muddying the waters.
Yeah, but you see, he's now no longer talking about the Madeleine McCann case, because if he's making that statement, I've got a multitude of objections if that's his understanding of that case.
Why?
Because the police are involved.
He's talking about in general.
It's not saying this is such a shit trap.
But this, Adam,
okay, no. You're hold on, Brian. Your warning, right? Potentially through ignorance, could have been overcome anyway. However, I think the warning now extends to Adam, because whether he wants to or not, he's going to be compelled to put his opinion forward in this regard, and I wouldn't want to stop him, but for the fact that it could get me in trouble, and I think Adam knows that, and that's why he's immediately taken it right to the edge, right, Adam?
Yeah, I'm happy to stay quiet, but I won't be able to comment because, like, let's say the first sentence, I'm in objection as to.
Well, that's enough reason for me to not do this. For you to say I would have to exclude myself on those grounds, no, okay, this is too close to that edge. And well done for taking it right close to that edge, Adam. That was excellent.
What the hell is in the video? That's so bad.
Just leave me just say something. I'm not saying to continue on the video. What he's doing, this guy covers this case in many different videos from different angles. The whole point of this exact video is to point out use of the funds and what they're doing as more of a scam, creating funds and putting apart what they're talking about and the reasons for these funds and how they're using them. That's what he's pulling apart, showing their dishonesty within the interview they're having, how they're not answering questions. That's what he's pulling apart. So he's focusing purely on the fund. He's not focusing on the case. He's focusing on the funds in this, and how they're being appropriated and used.
Well, again, same question. We're only a few seconds in, and I'm going to seek counsel from both you and Adam again. Should we continue or not?
I'll go another small bit and ask Adam again, and then if Adam says no, this can't, and then we'll go. I'll go with Adam after that.
Adam, you okay with that?
I'll just stay out of it because I'm going to have objections to the narrative that's being put to it. Okay. I'm better off just keeping stump.
Going on ever since the British government got involved, ever since Clarence Mitchell touched down in Portugal, the Portuguese police have been fed with wild geese to chase, and if they don't chase those geese, they get accused of misconduct and get their feet held to the fire for not chasing down every lead.
Now I see where Brian's going to win over, because his point's totally valid and comparable to us, isn't it, Brian? Well, we have told you that you need to explain how this horizon works with this boat going over it. And once you've done that, within our calculation, we'll offer you another one and another one and another one. And you've got to explain it. And if you don't, it's because you're not a conscientious flat earther who's interested in proving your point. You're just disingenuous, you're just scammer. You're just not here to do truth. Yeah? Otherwise, you'd explain why these stars go in different directions.
You're not an honest person.
Go on, John. Brian.
Yeah, but that's what it is. If you're not willing to keep dancing, then you're not an honest person. Yep. It's like, if you're not willing to chase up this thing, then it's obvious that you don't want the truth. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to you getting to the truth, you know what I mean, past all that rubbish.
Right. So it's a diversion tactic. You fund your own private investigation. You have your own fund so you can shut down anyone who doesn't believe you. So you can fund your own investigation and send leads in order to overwhelm the actual police who should be looking into you. And you have enough money to live comfortably and put on the show that you're actually innocent and searching. Is the Madeleine McCann Fund a charity scam? I'm Deception Detective. I'm an attorney trained in statement analysis, and this channel exists to expose lies and manipulation.
Excuse me, just for a sec. Is the gentleman actually in our chat right now? Hi, if it is you, Deception Detective.
I don't know.
Yeah, he is.
Oh,
No way.
yeah.
Let me just
Right.
check it's not. Let me just check it's not a sock though. Let me just actually click on go to channel.
Same icon.
Oh, it doesn't give me an opportunity to go to his channel anymore. I can't tell.
Surely someone else can verify.
Can someone just double check
Check
that
the
that is
channel. I'm
actually the
just
guy?
doing it
Thank
now.
you so much.
Yes, yes, it is.
I think
Yes,
it
it
must
is.
be. Yeah. Okay.
It
Cool.
is. It is.
Good to have you. Someone's obviously gone to your channel and said Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, and we're covering your video now. You might be surprised at the angle that we're covering it from, but yeah, as you put the sentiment to us, enjoy. You too. Hopefully, the critique will be of the subject linked to us rather than a critique of how you're criticizing them or not, as the case may be. We'll see.
Before we proceed, please hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell. In today's video, we're going to
Again, echo that sentiment. The link to Deception Detective's channel is going by in the live stream chat now. He's already here, but please leave him a comment and a like anyway, because it will help him algorithmically. Go wrap my tongue around it. So yeah, please still, I'll chat a little bit so that the live audience does actually do that. There's 113 people watching that could be going over, liking and subscribing or whatever, helping him along in the algorithm, giving him a view at the very least. So please do that as I'm waffling along with this call to action. As I say always, it's done, Deception Detective. Were you to respond if there's something we get wrong, which we may very well do, we're not exactly analysts of this sort, so we're probably not going to be able to cover it in the way that you have, given your credentials. But if we were to get something wrong, please feel free to critique us, and hopefully you'd put a link to our video in the same way and help us along in the algorithmic love. In case you hadn't realised, it's a flat earth discussion. We receive very little from YouTube. So there you go, his link's going by. Hopefully that's given enough time for people to actually do it and go and leave him a comment and give his video a few more views and help this along in the algorithmic love. There we go. Right, let's carry on.
going to analyze the second half of an interview the McCanns did with Channel 4 News around 2 years after Madeleine went missing. And it's all about how their fund is low on money. And we're going to investigate why the fund exists if its main purpose is not to find Madeleine. So if they believe Madeleine can't be found, what is the point of the fund? Let's listen.
To be honest, because as Jerry said, you have to question the motives of people.
So are you still quite hurt by the things that you read?
Well, a lot of the rubbish I don't read, to be honest, because as Jerry said, you have to question the motives of people like that. People who want to insist on something without evidence, people who want to bring, you know, more pain and suffering to a family who are already vulnerable, who are already suffering. You really have to question those people. And
I think this part, I have not watched this part of the interview in.
Go ahead, Adam.
No, I was going to say something here. Part of the deception this gentleman is pointing out is you are a bad person if you don't chase down the baseless assertions, which you all have brought up. The other thing is there's actual evidence that the police need to be focused on, and that will lead them to a conclusion. But if you're not allowed to look at the evidence, how do you ever to a conclusion?
The other thing I would say, it may be a slightly off-topic point for a statement analysis, but it looked like they'd made major edits in that video. And I don't know if the Channel 4 had just done that because there was quite a long pause between a couple of words that they said. And for, is it brevity or whatever the word would be, to keep it a bit more concise, they've hacked out sections. But those little pauses are sometimes when someone's on camera, the thing that I really like to see. There we go. It's just a critique of the editing. It might just, like I say, just be keep it snappy, but who knows? Anything else, anyone?
My last video, we watched part 1, and a commenter mentioned how when they say these people who accuse them of having killed their daughter need to be questioned, that could be a veiled threat, and I believe it might actually be. So when they say, hey, if you don't believe what we say, maybe you need to be questioned, maybe you need to be investigated, I do feel like that's a veiled threat. And in my video, How to Derail an Investigation, we saw their PR guy, Clarence Mitchell, say some of the same things where they're veiled.
Similar to what we get. So if you don't accept what we say, then you as an individual, as a character, you need to have your character looked into. In other words, it's a glorified ad hominem. Oh, right. Well, you feel there's something that should be investigated. Well, then you as a character, you need to be looked at. Why? Surely the aspect that I'm highlighting needs to be looked at, as opposed to me as an individual. But that definitely deters people from doing things like that. That's how we get deterred. Oh, right, you think Earth's flat? Back in the day, now we don't say it, Earth's measured flat. But back in the day, we believe Earth's flat. All right, well, I think you need to be investigated. Perhaps you're a little bit nuts.
Threats that if you don't...
Go on, John. Brian.
I keep it short, Nathan. Yeah, it's a threat of a possible character assassination. If you have any skeletons in your closet, like I have in my closet, then I'll pull out your skeletons before, and I'll make a bigger noise than you could ever do before you could ever pull out my skeletons. It's like that kind of a thing,
It's if you're, and it works well with us. If you're going to challenge the narrative, then the instant reaction, be that their PR team or ballers, is to question the individual and their integrity as opposed to look at the question. That's the analogy there.
Yes.
For me.
Yeah, me too. That's one of Brian's major points, actually. Brian does point out that is what they go for. You're either insane, an idiot, or what's the other one? Or a liar. And essentially all of the above are character assassinations.
Believe them? Well, maybe we need to look into you. And this is a technique that Scientology also uses to shut down their critics. Right? So if you criticize us, maybe we might start coming after you and criticizing you. Except the way he did it was he was talking about the Portuguese police.
Yeah, we have also covered Scientology here. The thing is with flat earthers, and I'm going to do a generalization stereotyping fallacy just to achieve my ends quickly. We've already suffered it. It's water off a duck's back now. The amount of character assassination. There's very little left in our closets to be exposed. You know what I mean? If they haven't gone through rooting through every little sock drawer by now. So the effect is far less. It's a real effective sting the first time. My God, it really stings. But about the 400th time, that sting is inconsequential to me. Like a beekeeper. Ow, it really hurts the first time. 4th millionth sting from a bee. It's just batted off like it didn't. You laugh about it. Look, another one. You don't even care. That's us. So when it comes to people like the Scientologists, when we've used them to parallel our examples, like you have done here, it doesn't faze me in the slightest. Oh, they'll come after you. All right, what they're going to do is, have we not suffered that for the last 10 years already? Yeah, we know exactly all about that. But we get it en masse, not just from a small group like Scientology.
But just so for Deception Detective, if he is still listening in the chat, just so he knows, this topic here to do with the McCanns, that's brand new. But just so he knows, Scientology hasn't come within 10 feet of us, within 100 miles of us, because they know we will crush them. So they don't come near us. They don't even attempt to even address us, because they know it's over. We bat them away with our little fingers, because they know that we can destroy them, because we have the information to destroy them. So they don't come near us. But we understand their tactics very well. We understand what they are, what they stand for, and what they're willing to do, because they're willing to do very nasty things.
But what we actually use them for isn't necessarily examples of them as a body, like the institution that is Scientology. We address what Scientology is as the whole, because Scientology is a very nice packaged example of heliocentrism. That is to say that every aspect, without exception, of Scientology operates within the paradigm most Western world people believe they're in, which is a ball Earth in a sky vacuum. So that, for future speculation, shall we say, is useful because they've packaged up Scientology and tucked it underground, and it represents, in its rhetoric, heliocentrism. So therefore, you can only infer that the entirety of the Scientology religion, which is based on heliocentrism, has been tucked up in nicely temperature-controlled vaults, according to the rumblings that I understand to be true, without having done any research on them, because I'm downright lazy. Nevertheless, we speculate because they are heliocentric in nature, and they're part of the whole crew that has propagated that space lie specifically. You know, L. Ron Hubbard was part of that little crew, and their information about space isn't just paralleling Scientology's information. It's the same information because it's come from the same people with the same purpose. It's just a very specifically religious aspect where most people who are heliocentric, I think they're on a ball, don't realize that's a religion. It's come from the church. It's been derived from measurements of a flat plane for the church to better predict where Easter comes in the case of Ptolemaic heliocentric orbital motion. All of those measurements of a flat plane to give you those religious ideas to better predict star movement have been turned into a very literal religion called heliocentrism, and alongside it, if you will, Scientology, all based on the same ideas taken from measurements of a flat earth. So with that in mind, that's where we parallel Scientology. But I see more often than not people using Scientology for the entity that is Scientology as it operates in society, how it treats its members, how it operates as a cult, which we don't tend to focus on. We literally talk about the actual aspects of Scientology and Xenu and things like that because their rhetoric is sky vacuum based and orbital based. So yeah, they could tuck it away if it fails. If heliocentrism were ever to fail, it would be archived in the form of Scientology, in my opinion. Anyway, that's a side note. Any other comments before we get back onto Deception Detective? I'm glad we covered this, by the way, Adam. So far, so good.
Yeah, I've just got to. I understand where you're wanting to go, so it's not about comment on the McCann's case. So I will refrain from doing so or objecting to anything that I hear contrary to my knowledge of the narrative. But I actually think it's got some fantastic parallels that I want to let it play, but I've got a number of points.
Go through them. I've been here for an hour and however long now, so I need to go and grab a glass of water. If you want to just give your points now, I trust you know where the line is, so I'll step away from the mic. The mic's all yours, Adam, for a few minutes.
Okay. So the analogy I'd also draw is the complicity of the media. And I'll just talk, if you look at what happens over time, you can make all sorts of accusations about their bullying, but they're supported by a complicit media. When they come on, they're mollycoddled, they're not given questions of any real merit. They're kind of led to give pre-programmed answers. Yeah, if you get somebody on, like Robert Murat or something, he's given a grilling. And as they're saying here, the people that challenge the narrative, there's veiled threats. And I said the main thing is the way in which the media treated opponents of the McCanns and how they treat opponents of the Ball Earth. The presentation of your argument is ridiculed in both. There's great analogies, and particularly the way the media rallied around these guys. You've alluded to editing before, because there was a lot of very controlled media around these people. There was a point where it was obscene of you to have accused them of having anything negative to do with that, even though there was so many very wrong things as parents that went off that night, that you as a decent parent cannot reconcile why they as parents behave like that. Yet those questions weren't really put to them, and that's the analogy I draw with the ball. Very simple questions that are obvious, that you as a reasonable person or a reasonable parent would say that's wrong. Those questions aren't put, and I would say that's very similar to how, if we're going to discuss flat Earth in the media, the right questions aren't put.
From the chat, deception. Hold on one sec. Deception detector says I'm an attorney. The McCanns are welcome to come after me if they dare. Thumbs up. Very good. Yeah,
he's very vocal about that in his videos, which I would support him on. On the back what Adam said there, the thing about it is that they're in a position where they can choose what media they want to speak to. So if you're somebody who's going to ask them any difficult questions, just like within our arena, you're not going to get within 100 miles of them. And that's the thing. They have a choice. And the media that they have a choice of are of the biggest media. So you're never going to get to ask them, if you're a journalist, you're never going to get to ask them the questions you really want to ask them because they won't be speaking to you. But they will be speaking to the media, which you are a part of, just not you. Finish, Dave.
Right. So when Clarence Mitchell did it, he wasn't threatening journalists and the British public like the McCanns are here. If this is a veiled threat, he was threatening the Portuguese police when he was saying, well, if they're not following every lead and instead looking at my clients, maybe that's some police misconduct. Maybe they're being prejudicial. Maybe we need to review those police officers. Let's listen to that again. But this clip must have been there because I do recall another commenter saying how ironic it is that they talk about people insisting on something without evidence and you have to question their motives. Well, that's exactly what we're doing here on the channel. When they insist that someone abducted their daughter without any evidence of it, that is a red flag that I question. There's a reason.
Okay, I know he's going to obviously get into his parallels that he draws, and we will listen to them. I know he's in the chat, but obviously there's parallels that we can draw there, right? Hopefully, someone from the chat was listening.
Yes, there is.
Brian.
No, I want you to go. I want you to say it.
No, I want you to. I'm pressing buttons and getting coffee.
There's a comment in the chat from Kevin Barbato. Which of these are flat earth debate? The media, the parents, or Maddie McCann? We're none. We're the people that get threatened for asking the questions. So we're the independent journalists that ask the obvious question about whether it's reasonable or not to piss off and leave your child after sedating her and going out for a meal. Yeah, that we're the ones that ask those questions. And what this guy's saying is, if you ask those questions, then you get your integrity brought into question. So we're those people. We're the ones that are.
Or before you qualify who we are, in this particular example, because Brian wanted me to expand on it, fine. In this example, he's saying that unless we accept evidence without proof, that's the specific example he's onto now, deception detective. And that's where we find ourselves challenging claims without evidence to back the claim. We just have to carte blanche accept a begging the question fallacy that, well, if I tell you Earth's a sphere and then give you an example of how my automatic assumption Earth's a sphere works, yeah, that's what, begging the question, or an example where they force you to accept that which they have no evidence for, lest you be, back to his original example, chastised. How do you define this better than I, Brian? Character assassinated. Yeah,
exactly. You're supposed to overcome an argument that doesn't have any backing. You're supposed to address something that doesn't have any proof given for it in the first place. Yet you're supposed to address this and take it serious. And when you are unwilling to do that, or you want to point out that there isn't any evidence for this claim you're making, you're just begging the question. You're pre-assuming your outcome. Your logic is flawed. It's circular. Then it moves away from the argument and moves to you personally. In some way,
I'll give you a perfect case in point because it's coming out on a video later on this evening if you're watching live, which is to say a guy comes in and tells me that I've got to prove the non-existence of movement. Now, obviously, in response, I'm telling him that's not a claim. I can't prove that we're not moving. That's saying that there isn't movement. That can't be a positive claim. I'm not going to be able to defend it. He insists. Now, 5 renditions later of my explaining why I can't defend that as a positive claim because it isn't one, he starts telling me that I'm going to be exposed and I can't hide forever. Very literally a textbook definition of what this guy's describing.
Evidence was brought up, and in the physical natural world, there's only one type of evidence that is acceptable when you're talking about what is. That's measurement.
Right.
How is Earth measured?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Instead of asking you to prove the non-claim of stationary Earth, why wouldn't they just blatantly just prove that the Earth is actually moving?
Because the objective is to show the objective isn't to show that Earth is moving or spinning up or around. The objective is to show that your opponent is a bad person and that their argument, which we don't have to make in the case of non-existent movement, is flawed. Because in so doing, showing your opponent's evil, a fraud, a scammer because they're a flat earther, and therefore their argument that they didn't need to be making in the first place that Earth is stationary is somehow flawed, is enough to win their argument that Earth is either moving up or spinning, without making any actual evidentiary-based claim in the first place. Just a baseless assertion that you're supposed to carte blanche accept, like in Deception Detectives. It's a lot of D's. Example.
So we've done 18 videos on the McCanns because we're doing the exact same thing. I'm questioning their insistence and conclusiveness about a kidnapper or stranger abductor because they are so conclusive about it and have been since day one, despite the lack of evidence. That is a sign of a hoax, whether it's a true crime hoax, like I believe we have with the McCanns and the Ramseys, or a more conventional hoax like Bigfoot, which we've analyzed on the channel, or aliens, like we've analyzed Bob Lazar. So hoaxes have...
Oh dear. Now I've got a crossover, haven't we, with aliens? That's unfortunate because we're going to have to address that, or I am. Unless anybody else wants to pipe up first. Nope. Oh.
Because what you're going to say will be something that Deception Detective won't be expecting.
Oh, absolutely not. So the whole aliens narrative is being punted upon us to convince you that you've got a sky vacuum, outer space, for them to come from. That is to say that you are peddled the notion that the sky contains soil, that the land is in the sky. That's the very inverted notion that you have been led to believe from birth. I'm not talking to Deception Detective, I'm talking to everybody. So based on the idea and notion that the sky is a vacuum and it contains all the soil that is new lands to be found, you then have a further notion of aliens coming from those further lands that are yet to be discovered. Lights in the sky like Mars with rovers on them and the moon with rovers on them. That is the notion that you are peddled to believe. Let's just debunk that before we move on so that that can be dealt with in case you haven't heard this before. The sky is not a vacuum. If the sky was a vacuum, then the gas we're breathing would fill the space in line with entropic law. It's called the second law of thermodynamics. Gas fills space. We are breathing gas at high pressure. Without a container, there can be no pressure. If the sky was a vacuum, the gas would never have developed pressure in the first place. It would have vacated into the area of volume in line with entropic law. So there is no sky vacuum. It's all a lie. Just so we're clear about that. Nevertheless, we have a position where... What was my example going to go on to? I've forgotten now.
Aliens in the horizon.
Aliens, of course.
Aliens.
My bad. So with that notion being held true for a globe believer, you'd have this idea that there's aliens going to come from the sky vacuum on the lands in the sky. In reality, aliens are real. You, in your everyday vernacular, wherever you are from, will describe this notion of aliens. People from new worlds, newly discovered lands, alien to where you live, coming across the pond or whatever to be on your country of home's origin. And then they would be described as aliens, sometimes described as illegal aliens if they've stayed beyond their welcome. Now, that notion is very much understood by almost everybody, the alien notion, because that is precisely what it is. Now, if you look back in our recent history, we had mapped, just add this in, flat territory, developed with flat angle measurements to the stars to give us that mapped territory and negotiate it. And at a certain point, there was, if you will, a ring around it that demonstrated the extent of our knowledge for what lands existed. Now, travellers who you'll be familiar with went out to discover the new worlds out in space, which was, until about a couple of hundred years ago, the description of the areas uncharted beyond the horizon. That was outer space, precisely where the new worlds, and sometimes now described as third world countries, were, fact, discovered. That is our actual history easily demonstrated. Ergo, up until a point in history, coincidentally where we started getting told we're on a spinning sphere based on derivations of flat Earth measurements, we found new worlds with aliens out in space. Those are the facts, Your Honour. There are no sky vacuums or soil in the sky, and the lights have been useful to map the territory flat. There we go. That's my alien intervention because of the propaganda about sky aliens. Hope that was what you thought I was going for, Brian.
Yeah, but let me just clarify. You're saying that where the terms aliens and new worlds and finding these new worlds and all this, all those terms existed prior to anyone believing in grey men in flying saucers or whatever coming from some planet in a sky vacuum. They all existed prior to that, and they all were referencing people, human people, who were on land that was somewhere past where we had discovered.
Yes.
Yes.
Are you saying that I might be living in one of them lands?
Yes. That's how they were mapped and described. Now, there will be, because of heliocentric indoctrination of the Western world and starting to be beyond if it continues to be successful, there are notions that need to be altered in terms of people's language. Third world country, not good if the new worlds are up in the sky. Developing country, yes, much better. What's that? It's on the map as a new world. Maybe not. Let's call it a continent.
Yeah, but I would like to point out that why this man threw that in is he's just pointing out that he has covered these other topics and these and the lies that are within these other topics. I don't think we should focus too much on the aliens part, but no. just for clarity for the show and for himself if he wants it. That's where all that rhetoric originated.
I get where you're going, but we're still a flat Earth show and we want to prove Earth is flat at every opportunity. And in the case of aliens, there's a propaganda out there about sky aliens, and it is very directly linkable to our rhetoric about how Earth was plotted out in terms of those territories with the aliens on them, and how the stars and angle measurements off a flat Earth were taken to give you those territories and give you radial values and equators when measuring Earth flat. Very useful opportunity, aliens. Just going to use that segue as it's needed, so the audience know Earth's measured flat, Brian.
I understand.
Have 4 criteria that make them all very similar. And one of those criteria is conclusiveness. So the irony is that they are criticizing people for being insistent about stuff despite evidence when they are doing that themselves.
Don't read, to be honest, because as Jerry said, you have to question the motives of people like that. People who want to insist on something without evidence, people who want to bring, more pain and suffering to a...
Man, he's picked good clips, hasn't he, to make his point really well after making it. So as soon as he's made his point about, well, they're inviting people to accept a narrative without evidence, and here's them criticising people who offer these claims and basically encouraging the character assassination by way of veiled threat. Hope I summarised all his points.
But he doesn't know.
Already vulnerable already.
Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
I'm going to say that he often doesn't know of the interview. He'll just do this live and just call it as he sees it or as he hears it.
Yeah, but what I mean is he obviously knows the subject well enough to be like us. If we're covering this live, right? We've never seen this before, but I would hope we'd still have plenty of insight to offer. But I'm just saying he obviously knows the subject well enough to make good points, and then the point is made for him in the clip because he's got good points. You know, I'm just complimenting him. That's all. I'm not saying he's rehearsed this and then edited it together. That's not what I'm suggesting.
Oh no, sorry, I didn't. I wasn't going to point the finger at you. Just in case you weren't aware of that, he actually just puts on an interview and just listens to what they say and calls it as he hears it.
Gotcha.
Stuff when you really.
And then here's another thing. So I know I'm pausing a lot at the front end of this. I didn't realize Kate was going to be so rich in statements. So we will let it play smoother down the road, but right now everything she's saying is a follow-up to something we said in the previous video. So now Kate says that you have to question these people because they're bringing more pain and suffering to parents who are already vulnerable, right? So trying to shame the people that don't believe their story. And I actually did a post on X about this, so I'm going to show it to you. Some of the
do we get ever accused of bringing pain and suffering on people?
All the time.
Yeah, to our children, don't we?
Oh yes, of course, we're all child abusers.
Tactics that these mid-level manipulators use, and I've seen pop up in the comments, and how you can identify them and respond to them. So I'm going to switch over to that right now. So conveniently, I did this post a few hours ago.
See, this is going to be the juicy bit, isn't it? As opposed to his response to the McCanns. This is hopefully where we'll get a lot more insight out of him personally. Right, Brian? Yes, Nathan.
Well, it's all the juicy bit. It's all the juicy bit, to be honest.
Mid-tier manipulation tactics, superstition, shame, whataboutism, and false dichotomy. Maybe I'll cover all.
Oh, that sounded like a familiar list. Wow.
All the rest in a different video because the McCanns use all of them. But right now, let's
wow, so do our opponents. Isn't that amazing?
just focus on shame. So often in my McCann's videos or Summer Wells videos or Ramsey videos, I get people saying something along the lines of this comment here from Mike Graham, right? You're making money out of someone's grief. A bit shameful, don't you think? Or these parents have already suffered a
You're making money out of the lies of flat earth. Shameful.
tragedy.
You get money, making money out of spreading lies.
Yep.
You're making money out of spreading lies. That's what you're accused of.
Yep.
There's a slight difference between us and the people accusing the McCanns, and that we actually have proof the earth is flat because it's measured that way. People that are pointing out that they don't have any proof for their position, they're not wrong to point that out, but we're in a slightly different position where we stand.
Gotcha. So what you're saying,
Much
by
stronger.
comparison, it would only be directly comparable if the people who were, by the McCann's estimation, bad-mouthing them, of course, if they actually had, well, actually, I've got footage like the Sabruga, I can't say that word, Sabruga footage, you know what I'm talking about,
The
JFK.
film, yeah.
Sabruda, is that how you say it?
The Bruder, I think it is.
Yeah,
the Bruder
Sabruda.
film.
I've got the Sabruda footage equivalent of the McCanns doing something heinous. Therefore, I do have the actual narrative and story to prove my version of events, by contrast to their lies. Now, John's saying, no, the people who are being critical of their story are simply being critical of their story without actually offering up an alternative. We are critical of the globe and show how it hasn't worked for the last 10 years. But as of 1st of Jan 2024, Earth is measured flat. We can demonstrate our contrapositive position and annihilate the globe by showing how the globe has taken flat Earth measurements to infer it. So we have a absolute stone cold silver bullet to prove our point on our side of this discussion, unlike the detractors of the McCanns. Right, John?
Except you
and not to take any validity.
But this is the interesting analogy with the McCanns. There is evidence that the Earth is flat, yeah? And it's the way the media won't put that to the McCanns, the way the media don't deal with those how do you have gas pressure without a container moments. There is an analogy here.
don't you feel bad bringing more pain to them? Well, that is a mid-level manipulation tactic where you try to shame someone into backing off of their opinion or just leaving a topic alone. And my response to that has been, and always is, this: I only care about two things: the truth and teaching people how to spot it before misinformation becomes too powerful.
Sound familiar?
Yes,
That's what we're interested
parallel.
in.
A little bit.
Exactly. The information is too powerful with the globe now. It's going to be hard for us.
Yeah, the misinformation may be too powerful. It's already overcome almost everybody in the Western world. Doesn't alter where we stand, Earth being measured flat. When we describe how it's measured flat and all of the tools that are currently in use with Earth flat, and how the globe uses those measurements from a flat Earth to claim it's a sphere, those things are undisputable. It's not like we're going to be called out on our scam for showing how it's measured. But yet, shouldn't we feel shame for peddling these lies? No, it's just measured that way. That's just how it is.
I can't be shamed, I can't be bought, and I can't be blackmailed. Capiche?
I really do need a car. If anyone wants to try and blackmail me.
Paisan.
Say again, Neil.
He said capiche, so I said capiche, paisan.
So when the McCanns try to shame the British public or journalists or commentators like myself or Pat Brown or Peter Hyatt or Sonia Polton or Detective Amaral, it is a mid-level manipulation tactic. Maybe it works on some people, but I don't feel ashamed about pointing out a liar when I believe I see one. That's the entire point of my channel.
Cool. Good for you. Yeah, I echo that sentiment. Good for you. That's the kind of confidence I'm trying to instill in some of my viewers, if I'm honest. Take note.
All I would say is the word belief is not a word we use around here.
No.
For ourselves. Well, when I point it out when I know someone is lying.
So what they're trying to do here is a manipulation tactic. Also, while we're on the topic, I'll just point out this other mid-level manipulation tactic, which Kate just tried to do as well, which is a false dichotomy, where she says, right, you're accusing us of killing our daughter. Well, we're already grieving parents. How could we do that? So I've had comments along those lines as well, right? Like this one from Steve Evans. Dear Deception Detective, these people are grieving. They have lost their daughter. It's been going on for many years. I do not believe they are deceiving. I think they are ground down, institutionalized, yet grieving. And my reply to false dichotomies like that, particularly this one, I replied, I also believe that they are genuinely grieving the loss of their daughter. However, I also believe they are lying. Right, so you have to escape binary thinking. Both can be true. Right? I don't think they deliberately killed Madeline. I think it was a tragedy. I think at worst it was manslaughter.
Is someone going to parallel false dichotomy? It's nice, easy, nice, low-hanging fruit.
No, you do it, Nathan.
I want to engage the panel.
You do it, because if you have an example in mind, I'm trying to come up with an example. You do it.
Fine. Same, I'll just plug my video for later. I'm always just going to seek out the opportunity to plug my own material. So later on today, there's going to be a video coming out where a chap comes in because he wants to claim that Earth is moving up. Now, he doesn't want to directly say it because it's embarrassing and stupid, but it's much easier to put the position that I have to defend Earth not moving in a false dichotomy. You say Earth's not moving. How'd you prove it's not moving? Because when you go about trying to do that, I'm going to show how wrong you are. Therefore, my argument that it is moving needs less validity offered if I can debunk your claiming it isn't in a false dichotomy.
Yeah, and that's also a reversal of the burden of proof, because he would require you to try to support that the Earth is stationary for him to even present anything to the opposite. Because for him to present something in the opposite, but without you doing that, is ridiculous. It comes across as ridiculous. If you understand what I mean. So he needs you to do that first.
Sounds like where's your model at, Flat Earther, doesn't it?
Yes.
It's that kind of a thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like
that was the perfect
mine-
one, actually.
well-
That's much better than mine, John. Can you just expand on that?
Well, the globe believer will hold up a flat Earth celestial sphere model, or a derivative of it that they call the globe, not knowing where the measurements came from for that model. And I'm hooking my fingers when I say model. And then they'll hold up a different model, and one that's based on, flat Earth angle measurements. And they'll hold them up and say that theirs is a globe and yours is a flat Earth. Look how the flat Earth doesn't work.
Perfect. So we've got the azimuthal equidistant projection with a sun and moon that's been created by someone somewhere that's being punted as being your claim before you've even opened your mouth as a flat earther. Here's your azimuthal equidistant flat pancake with a sun and moon rotating above it. There's your claim, flat earther. My claim is this equatorial plane with a globe wrapped round it with angles coming from the center of hell in Earth to the stars. And that proves a globe. So now let you commence defending your azimuthal equidistant projection of a flat plane you didn't claim. Because when you fail, I'm going to be proving that my flat Earth inside a globe with angles to the stars off the equatorial plane proves a globe. Pretty good, John. Pretty good.
Yeah, well, the whole point of that is that their straw man model that they will hand you, their flat Earth model that they will create and hand you, that you're supposed to support and it's in opposition to a model that they built off of the back of flat Earth elevation angles, the Polaris.
Exactly.
And they don't even have a model. They're calling it a model. It's actually just a mathematical paradigm, right, that they've created for themselves.
Yep.
So, you're supposed to support this straw man that they're handing you, and that they know that their pre-assumed model can defeat. So, once you get into that dangle at all, you're going to lose no matter what you do.
Yeah, because you're in a false dichotomy and you haven't realised it. Yeah, because you're in a false dichotomy and you don't appreciate how the fallacy is being used.
Due to negligence. And Steve Evans replies, grieving and lying. And I replied, grieving and lying are not mutually exclusive actions. The loss of their daughter is a tragedy, regardless of whether they were involved in her death and cover-up. Right, so Kate, right here in this statement, uses two mid-level manipulation tactics that can easily be refuted and pushed back against if you just stick to your ground and realize why you're doing what you're doing. Right? We don't make these videos to humiliate them or mock them or even be rude to them. We make these videos so you can spot what a liar looks like, and I believe they are in fact liars, and they're very good to learn from because they lie publicly, they do it a lot, and they do it in ways that you commonly see in everyday life because they are mid-level, run-of-the-mill liars.
Android Auto gave us the power to
Globers.
Really have to question those people, and I don't value their opinion, because I wouldn't behave like that. So, you can't be, distracted from what is important, which is Madeline, by people like that. The majority of people are good people. They're the quiet majority, and I strongly believe they're the ones that want to find Madeline.
So notice the people who are good are sitting there quietly doing what they're told by the McCanns. Open your wallet to give us money when we ask for it, and shut up if you have any questions about our story, about why we did not help the investigation.
Yeah. I mean, if we were on a spinning ball, you'd think that they would encourage all detractors from that claim to postulate their evidence to detract against it, because it would be the case. And there'd be no need to shut down opponents, right?
Well, there's certainly be no need to pigeonhole, let's say, this show and make a point by YouTube and Google of not promoting it and making it as difficult as possible to find for the average everyday person.
Did you see my screenshot?
I haven't, no, because I'm just looking at a G+. So why would they need to do that if their argument is so solid? They have such a solid argument, then why do they need to shut up the opposition?
Yeah, they've already conceded to us, though, that it's not about evidence and arguments, right? I'm paraphrasing. It's about trust.
Yep.
It's not about the
Exactly.
evidence and arguments. It's about the trust. And because we don't trust the same people that they trust, where they got their little fairy tale from, that is all right for them to make us look like stupid people. And that's it. They've conceded to that. You could find that in their little How to Debate a Flat Earther article by space.com. That's them. The guys that you Globers who believe, they're telling you how to debate us. Oh, you can't debate us. Why? Because it's not about arguments and evidence. It's about trust. So there you go.
Just so...
now you're sounding like, as you surmise that, sounds like when we listen to the Neil deGrasse Tyson, why he won't debate flat earthers.
Yeah.
I think that's the analogy I'd have here, because they're the gatekeepers of the truth, aren't they? So it's about how they'll engage and how they deride people that want to ask honest questions, reasonable questions. And deGrasse does the same. Yeah, they might win because they're more charismatic than me. This is what they're saying, that you're a bad person if you challenge this. And my debates sound I'm honest and good, and that's what Neil deGrasse is saying. I'm honest and true. I'm a scientist. So people, if they do challenge me, I don't want to go into these debates because if I did lose, it'd be because the other person's been more charismatic than me. There's caveats as to why they won't do what is a reasonable thing to do.
Exactly. And because I'm the one holding the objective truth stance, I can't afford to lose to somebody who could just beat me without that objective truth with just charisma and character.
Yeah,
right?
full on.
So I'll just stay away from it altogether.
Yeah, full on poisoning the well with a justification for doing so.
Yeah.
Just for the purpose of letting the deception detective know, in case he is still in the audience. In 2019, we're not just saying this. In 2019, Susan Wojcicki was the CEO. I can't remember. I have her surname wrong. Was the CEO of YouTube at the time, and she was called into a hearing. I think it was a Senate hearing or a Congress hearing in the US, and she was asked publicly, "What are you going to do about flat Earth?" Specifically, what is YouTube and Google going to do about flat Earth? And she said she was going to stop all promotion of it. So that's not just some
I'll just
conspiratorial
a second
thing.
time. So I said, did you get my screenshot? So I've been questioning, why do my videos and other Flat Earthers videos disappear after they go live for a prolonged period, and then maybe 12, 13 hours later, about the time that you'd lose all steam on a new live video, do they then appear? And I went into my stats, I don't know what I was doing in there. I just ended up in this particular stats page, and it said, live stream, most recent, published 53 years ago. Did you not see that?
I did see that. And I don't know if that's just a YouTube glitch or if it's something that the algorithm is intentionally doing.
I'm not saying that is directly. I'm just correlating it for the sake of this particular example to say we are suppressed, and me seeking out little breadcrumbs from what might explain why I can never find my own damn videos was just that, me thinking about it, and then, oh, what's this? My video was published 53 years ago. What's going on?
Is Deception Detective still out there?
I've been keeping an eye on the chat. I don't think he has. He did pop his head periodically to have a quick scroll left, just in case I missed him. I don't think so. I think he popped by.
He was
Go on.
Probably disappointed because he thought you might be evaluating his performance, but you were doing a parallel.
Yes.
I would ask him, Deception Detective, if perhaps maybe in the future that he can make a case for the globe and have him on the side of the globe, right? As he's a defense attorney, and put up a defense of the globe, and then we'll come in and we'll talk to him, and then we'll see if there's any parallels to the case and how it flows. How about that?
That would be interesting.
Why we refuse to do a polygraph. Why we refuse to deny involvement. Don't ask those questions. Don't be skeptical. Never be skeptical. Just sit back and shut up and open your wallet when we ask you to.
And you're appealing.
And if you don't shut up, maybe we need to question your motives. Maybe we need to sick a private investigator on you or a lawyer on you. Right, another funny thing in my last video is so many people saying, well, I'm surprised they haven't sued you yet, DD. I think it will come down the pike. They are welcome to try me. Right, if you don't know, I am an attorney.
Yeah, express this exact sentiment in the chat here.
I don't need to be like a Detective Amaral who has to fund his own defense. Right? They are welcome to try me. I'm happy to depose them. I would love the opportunity to depose them. So they're welcome to have at it.
Now that's it, isn't it?
What happened to the money that you had previously? There's around, I understand, 3.
Sorry, Adam, I couldn't press the buttons quick enough. Go
I
ahead.
say that's it. Bring it on, Neil deGrasse. Bring it on, McCanns, yeah? You want us, come and get us. And they won't. Tony tried to get to a court, they make sure the truth can't be heard. It's not conducive for the McCanns to challenge somebody like him, is it? Because the things they're trying to not talk about would ultimately come up. And it's the same with us. It's why NDT and Brian Cox won't really engage with us. That's why all we get is what was served up.
Trolls. That's all what they are. Trolls. If they're the people we should be addressing because they're the ones who hold the high priesthood of heliocentrism, those are the people that should be discussing and debating it with us. If we're considered the high priests of flat Earth, as we are sometimes being described. Well, why are we dealing with the trolls only? Well, because we're censored. Why? Well, because it's very dangerous to have the truth that isn't globe-related being put before the public that are being lied to. Needs suppression.
So all he'll get, you see, is the same. Just trolls in his chat, attacking him, questioning his integrity, calling him a liar, an evil man. Yeah, for this specific. But what he won't get is the thing he's goading there, really, isn't he? He's
as likely to get to depose the McCanns as we are to depose Tyson.
Yeah, exactly.
350,000 left. What happened to the previous money that was donated?
Okay. I think the first thing to say is that the priority today is very much about asking the public to help us with a petition to get the government to do more. We have been...
So notice the journalist asked them, what happened to all the money? You had all this money, now you only have 50,000 pounds left. And Jerry doesn't answer, right? So notice the deflection. He reframes. The priority today is asking people to sign a petition. So all the taxpayer money, our donations, our grants we received, whatever happened to that, that's none of your business. Be one of those quiet majority, those pleasant little sheep who never question us, who do what they're told, who feel shame if you question us. What happened to that money is none of your concern. Right now, we're asking you to do us another favor. Now go sign this petition.
The parallels are so freaking...
Being fortunate, although it's not helping.
NASA. Don't worry about how much money NASA gets.
Don't the curvature. Don't worry about the curvature. No, this is why are you asking about that? Don't worry about that. What do you mean? That's what it sounds like to me, man.
Don't worry about the clouds.
Never mind the clouds.
helped us get where we want by having a fund, and the fund was set up in response to people offering money, and it was set up properly, and the fund's very accountable. It's independent auditors. We have a fund administrator who's got lots of experience, but the vast majority of the money in the fund's been spent directly on search fees. It's obviously supported other things, awareness campaigns. We have a part-time coordinator now. We have a media liaison to deal with things like this here and in Portugal and trying to get our messages across.
So notice the fund is not just for searching. It's also for reputation management, media liaisons. People like Clarence Mitchell, I believe, right? So Clarence Mitchell first came onto the scene a week after Madeleine went missing. And I did a video about this, how to derail an investigation.
Can we draw any parallels here? I don't see that we can.
Well,
Would be
yeah.
You
Yeah,
see,
it would be.
it's distraction, isn't it? What you're saying here is, well, we're not researching the nature of the Earth, are we? We're spending a lot of money showing people that we're researching. NASA would be a lot of money spent to do what? To achieve what? You know, all that science that's come from it. Yeah. What have we got? We've got Teflon and Velcro, as far as I'm aware.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
NASA doesn't have to prove anything to you.
No.
Sounds like you heard that nonsense.
No, the money it spends is to maintain an illusion, and I think that's what being parallel.
Well, what you know is they spend a lot of money on sweatshirts and T-shirts and hats that people can buy. The production of the creation of those. So people buy a sweatshirt or a hat with NASA on it. It's a symbol of support, that you're supporting the narrative, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah, it's like a sports team.
Kind of, yeah.
He was from the British Foreign Office. He came to Portugal to support the family and then was hired on full time. So he left his job, as far as I understand it, right? From what I've read in the British press. He left his job to become their PR person full time, which is interesting, which is why in that video, I hypothesized that maybe he does know what happened. Maybe he does know something, and if enough pressure could be put on him or enough incentive, maybe he would reveal it. Because the decision to quit a government job to be the PR person full time for the parents of a missing girl is a very bad job security choice, unless you know that girl will never be found. For example, if he quit his job at the Foreign Office, became their full-time PR person, and Madeleine was found the next day, he'd be out of the job. He would have left his job. He'd be stranded in Portugal. Why would they have to pay him anymore? Madeleine was found. So I do believe, and like I've said in that video, so I recommend watching that one, How to Derail an Investigation, if you want to see a powerhouse of persuasion and understand how the Madeleine McCann investigation was derailed so early on when...
See, I do disagree with an aspect of this, which is knocking on the door of the liars. If he's claiming this guy's an insider and knows the truth, then I by parallel, don't advise people who watch this show to go knocking on the door of NASA, asking them for the truth, or associates of NASA asking them for the truth. Because once you've identified somebody as a liar, appealing to them for the truth, I appreciate it's not a good parallel, because in this guy's line of work, that's what it's designed to do, right? It's like Anthony. It's law, digging out the inconsistencies to expose the truth. Whereas our inconsistencies from our opponents only help them leave fuel on the fire of confusion. So they like that. The inconsistencies don't fuss them. So there isn't a great parallel. But for us, by parallel, I wouldn't advise going back and asking the guy that, what, you think that NASA are going to tell you what the sky is now that you've got a load of questions about why it's blue? Because it's not a sky vacuum and you've realised how they've lied to you. Don't go asking them for the answers. Walk away. Turn your back on the liars. It's why we very rarely cover NASA, because we have done precisely that. Actions speak louder than words. We have turned our back on them. Occasionally, we'll use them as a hostile witness, but that's about it. But yeah, again, for the guy, that's not necessarily directly parallel for you. Don't take it as a critique of you.
The British government got involved.
He's in a different position, Nathan, because he's talking more about a court of law situation where somebody could be held to account in a court of law, whereas NASA have no reason to have to be honest with you.
Yeah. Same with the trolls.
They're
That's
not
my
under
point.
pressure.
Exactly. I agree. And same with the trolls. You know, the people who come here will throw their own credibility, credentials, integrity. They'll throw it all on the bonfire if it means they shame you as a flat earther. They don't care. But you Neil deGrasse Tysons wouldn't get away with that, which is why I labelled our opponents just the trolls. Because obviously you can't have Neil deGrasse Tyson going entirely against heliocentric rhetoric to get 1 point against a flat earther in a discussion. He ain't going to do that. He can't. He has to be seen to maintain his integrity and his position with consistency that cannot be done in debate if you're a heliocentric priest. It has to be done by the anti-flat earthers who can just relinquish their globe rhetoric where necessary if it means they win a point.
Well, I would just like to say you're dealing with two different standards of evidence when you're talking about what this gentleman's speaking about and what we're talking about, because there's, like, say with the lie, right? Being able to show a motive and actually knowing the motive are two different things. You just have to show a motive in law, right? But we're talking about what we know of what is the physical world. So the only standard is measurement. And unless you're talking about what's happening in the physical world, then you'll get into the scientific method. But the baseline for our discussion is not necessarily the same for what he's talking about. That's my only, as far as parallels go, my only problem.
Yes, indeed. And at the point where these parallels deviate, I'm going to wish all of you watching live a farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who liked, commented, shared, subscribed. Let Deception Detective know that at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. There should be a link going by hopefully right now, so you can do exactly that if you're still watching live. Of course, a massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on an after show, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Away from him, because